This video is to show you how to make some gingerbread, which you can use then to make any traditional gingerbread shapes or even gingerbread men or women, or you can actually use it to make into reindeer, which you may have actually seen on some Google searches. So the first thing that you need to do in a saucepan is gently melt together your butter and your syrup. So you don't need to actually get that to boil, you just need it to get to the point where it's all actually melted and there's no lumps of butter left in there. That can then be put off to the side to cool. Into a large mixing bowl then you are going to put your flour, your sugar, your ginger and your bicarbonate of soda. So if you can then just mix all of that up together to make sure that it's all actually mixed through. Again, I'm just actually using a tablespoon here, but you can, if you prefer, use a wooden spoon. It doesn't really make any difference. It's just I'm going to use the same wooden spoon that I've used in my margarine to save dirtying up too many dishes. So once you've mixed those together and your margarine has cooled down, the next thing that you need to do is to add your egg to your butter and syrup mixture. Now make sure obviously that it has been left to cool for a bit, because otherwise it'll just actually curdle into the pan. So just break your egg into there and mix that around just to make sure that you've actually got it all mixed in together. And then that is going to go into your dry ingredients to hopefully form a dough. So if you get your bowl of your dry ingredients, okay, you may want to actually just make a bit of a well in the middle to pour your mixture into, and then we just need to mix all of that around until it comes together as a dough. Now, depending on how accurately you've been able to measure out the syrup, which is not that easy to do because obviously some of it does get left on the spoon when you measure it out, you may actually need to just add a little bit more syrup to help bind it all together. You don't want it to be too wet, but obviously you don't want to have too many bits of dry flour left at the bottom of your bowl. Once you get your mixture to this stage, you can then get your hands in there and just check that it is all coming together. As I said, you don't want any dry bits. We don't want our gingerbread mixture to be too crumbly, but obviously we don't want it too sticky either. So you can see now that that's all coming together in a ball of dough. So what I'm going to do now is just take the ball of dough, pop it onto some cling film. If you don't have any cling film handy, you could just actually wrap it up into a sandwich bag. Just going to cover that up then and pop it into the fridge for about 15 minutes to chill, which actually then makes it easier to roll out. So the gingerbread has been in the fridge now for 15 minutes just chilling. At this point now I actually have switched the oven on, so it goes on to 190 degrees Celsius or gas mark 5, depending what you're actually using at home. So if you put your gingerbread onto a floured surface, you may just want to knead it around for a bit to check that it's all come together. Okay, this is fine and ready for me to roll out. I don't usually like using rolling pins, but I tend to find that if you pat out gingerbread, it does tend to have some cracks on the top, which we don't really want. So if I use the rolling pin to roll it out instead, that should avoid that. So if it does crack a little bit with the rolling pin, if you just keep going over it as you're flattening it down, it will actually get to the stage where it's nice and smooth. Now you don't want to make these gingerbread too thin, so you're looking at rolling it out to about 2 centimetres. The important thing then to make sure that you're doing is using the gingerbread as much as you can and not actually having to re-roll it too many times. So when you're cutting out your gingerbread, or whatever shape you're deciding to use, if it's not your gingerbread cutters, make sure you are keeping them as close together as you can, so that, as I said, you're not having to re-roll out your dough too many times, because every time you roll it out, it does actually make it quite dry. So once you've finished, I said they don't all have to be the same way, however you can actually fit them in to make sure, as I said, you're getting as many as you possibly can. Just get one more there. You can then take those, lift those off and pop them onto a greased baking tray ready to pop into the oven. So just gently pick them up. They are hopefully not going to spread outwards, but I would just make sure that you give a little bit of space around them so that the heat, when you are actually cooking them in the oven, gets right around them, rather than if they're touching each other. It's difficult then for the heat to actually get through. So pop them onto your baking tray. They are then going to go into the oven only for about 7 or 8 minutes, so it doesn't take very long at all. You don't have to waste the dough that you didn't use though. Obviously, you can just actually put that all back together to get as many of your shapes out of that as you can. And then if you're left over, once you've done all that with a small bit of mixture, you can just actually, if you think if this is just a bit of leftover mixture, once I've re-rolled all of that, you can just actually put it into a ball and flatten it out and cook that bit as well. And that can be a taster piece for you if you wanted to check how your gingerbread tastes before you give it out to other people. So after 7 to 8 minutes, the gingerbread will be ready for you to take out of the oven. If you just gently lift them off using a spatula, they will still tend to be quite soft at this stage. That's perfectly normal. It's nothing to worry about, and they will firm up as they actually cool down. This recipe is also for quite a soft gingerbread, not quite the firm, harder gingerbread that you may be used to getting from the supermarket. So it is a softer one anyway, but as I said, they will be quite flexible as they come out of the oven. So you can then move on to the decorating stage. Now there's a few different things you could do with the gingerbread. You could, if you wanted to, just take a skewer and actually do the markings on the gingerbread, so you're not putting any additions on there at all, and you're just using, as I said, a skewer to put some holes into the gingerbread to resemble his face, and some buttons going down the front. Could also, if you wanted to, shape a mouth for him, so you don't need necessarily to have any decorations. Okay, you could actually just use a skewer to put some markings onto your gingerbread. Also, while they are still quite soft, if you've got some chocolate chips available, you could actually just press some chocolate chips, actually press them in upside down, so that the pointy bit actually goes into the gingerbread. So you could, again, quite simply decorate it in that way. So you don't have to have lots and lots of decorations available to actually make them look a little bit more interesting than just the plain gingerbread, although the plain gingerbread tastes fine. So we can, as I said, decorate them just with some chocolate chips. You may decide that you want to use some of the icing pens or some melted chocolate to actually decorate your gingerbread man. So you could use some of these chocolate writers like I've got here. Just actually going to put some blobs of chocolate on, because I'm actually going to give him some proper eyes and a nice big red nose. And I'm going to again use some of the chocolate just to actually put onto there, so I can stick a couple of buttons on down his middle. And then I'm going to use some of the white chocolate icing, chocolate, just to actually put some more detail then. On his body. Now what you can also do, if you decided that you wanted to, you could actually do the gingerbread man upside down and turn him into a reindeer. So about halfway down, if you actually put where you want the eyes to be and the nose, I'm just going to actually use the chocolate pen to do a mouth shape as well for him. So I'm going to pop the eyes on and then pop another Smartie on as his nose, and then I'm going to take my chocolate writing pen again to actually do some antlers and some ears onto the reindeer. So I'm just going to do some ear shapes by here and then coming up. Now I'm not particularly artistic, so I'm not actually great at doing this. I'm sure you will actually manage to do far better gingerbread and reindeer than what I'm showing you here, but hopefully if I'm showing you the process, you're going to be able to produce some really good products to be able to show me what you've done. So what you could then, as I said, have is decorate them so that you've got your gingerbread man, your traditional gingerbread man, or your reindeer gingerbread. Again, those I think would be really nice to give as personalised gifts for Christmas.